Good morning, everyone. Wow. Okay, we need some more coffee. Please, can we get the coffee cart in the back? Thank you. Good morning. I am Chris Winslow, Chairman of the Chesterfield County Board of Supervisors. My pleasure and honor to welcome each of you to this great session on the very interesting topic of sports tourism in Virginia. Joining me on this panel discussion this morning, and we'll have 4 questions and time for answers at the end, are Dennis Bickmeier, Executive Director of the Henrico County Sports and Entertainment Authority, which has just recently been formulated, if I'm not mistaken, along with Michael Rojas. Michael Rojas is the Sports Tourism Manager for Prince William County and a member of SportsNOVA. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. And before we get into our discussion, I just want to say thank you to VACO and especially Gage Harder, VACO's Director of Communications, for making this breakout session possible and a part of this year's conference. Gage helped shape a few statements and questions, and so I'm really pleased with her. I just want to say thanks. As a moderator, I will pose a couple questions to the panel, and each of us will weigh in. And we'll, at the end, again, have time for questions. So if you have a question after one question, that's fine too, and I'll call it. We'll have a nice and easy discussion here this morning. With that said, we'll get right into it. All right, gentlemen, nice softball across the plate here. If you would describe the current state of sports tourism in your county. What does it look like? How are you doing? What are some of the metrics? And so if you give me a snapshot today, if you're going to take me around your county, where would you go? What would you show me? What does it all look like? I'll start with Dennis.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning, everybody. So it's interesting, as Mr. Winslow mentioned, the Henrico Sports and Entertainment Authority is a new creation, very similar to the Economic Development Authority, the business of sports tourism, and it is its own business now, and it continues to grow. It calls for an expansion to equal what's happening in sports tourism. So our Sports and Entertainment Authority is very closely aligned with the Economic Development Authority. It's no accident that we're in the same building. We're already working on projects together, whether it's new facility development from a sports standpoint that has another economic development opportunity aligned with it. But right now, I would say the biggest thing that's happening in Henrico County is we have a 185,000 square foot indoor facility that's gone vertical, repurposing a former mall at Virginia Center Commons. It's 12 basketball courts that can convert to 24 volleyball courts that can convert to a 3,500 seat arena. I've been in this business a long time. We're creating one of the most flexible buildings that's out there right now. We keep pushing the envelope every day to build more flexibility into the building because we're not building it for next year, we're building it for 10, 15, and 20 years down the road. So we're looking way down the road at other programming in the building. It's kind of our anchor facility right now, but not far from there are our flat fields and our diamond fields. And what we've ultimately created right off of 295 is really a sports tourism corridor where you can get to 3 or 4 of our facilities in a matter of minutes, and that's important to tournament organizers and tournament promoters as well. What's coming right around the corner is a proposed 17,000 seat arena that we're working on. Central Virginia's been underserved in the Coliseum Arena area for a while now, so we're working on that, and again, that's a big economic development project in Green City. It's a complete eco-district, the largest eco-district east of the Mississippi. So that, like I said, we've got some baseball fields that are coming. I mean, we just keep going down the list. So, and I'm sure at some point we'll talk about pickleball a little bit more in depth because we're building a pickleball facility as well that's anchored with 2 center court configurations, which really allows us to go after some big events.
Thank you. Wow, that's going to be hard to follow up. So again, I'm Michael, for the Sports Tourism Manager for Prince William County. I've been there for about 3 years now, so quite excited about that. If you come around Prince William County, you are going to see a different culture. We are the only minority majority county in the whole state of Virginia. So We definitely pride ourselves on that, number one. But sports tourism, I came into this role and there wasn't really a focus on sports tourism before this, so I'm the very first sports tourism manager that there is. So I'm still very much building our program up from where we just had 1, 2 events a year that were major. Now I actually just recently landed a three events over 5-year contract with USA BMX at our BMX facility there. And we're constantly adding new events. We just had what we called Sports Fest, or Virginia Sports Fest is what we called it. It was solely created by ourselves. And what this was bringing in different travel tournaments of all different variety of sports to Prince William over the same weekend. The idea was to not only fill our hotel rooms, but to provide our county with a form of entertainment. So we were able to open our doors or fields to different sporting events. All of the community was able to come out, watch or participate in some of the different events, as well as partake in having food trucks, there's entertainment, there's a concert. So we're going to continue growing that. So that's just one of the big ideas and things that we have going on. We've recently added, we talked about pickleball courts. We have a dedicated pickleball facility now, along with we're converting many of our parks to have pickleball courts in those as well. So pickleball is huge. I actually just played it for the first time a couple of weeks ago, so better than I thought I was going to be. So, there's lots of things going on. A couple things I can't talk about yet still, but it'll be great to see when those come down the line. But we're super excited about where the direction that we're going in, and the future is going to be great with sports tourism.
That's great. Sounds like you all are in your infancy in some regards, and so that's really cool because I think we're all in different places. Chesterfield, if you look at Chesterfield as a snapshot right now, of course we have the River City Sportsplex, which is the highlight of sports tourism in our county. It is 12 lit turf fields, and we are home to 64 tournaments, and that's a big draw annually to the county. So you have a lot of families coming in, and particularly a lot of female tournaments. So the whole family will come to see the daughter play soccer, field hockey, whatever it is. But for some reason that doesn't necessarily happen if the son goes. They just sort of kick the son out the door and say, we'll see you when you get back. So anyway, we do see a lot of that, and we are, just as Henrico has just passed a bond referendum in the county, and so we have 4 more lit fields going in the back, which will be a total of 16, and should be able to have 2 tournaments at once or just one large one and not have to use supplemental fields in the area. So that's a big thing. These tournament organizers are looking for efficiencies, and they're looking for a good experience, and so a lot of what we've done at River City is really reflective of those conversations over the last several years. In addition to that, of course, we have Pocahontas State Park, which a lot of people forget is in Chesterfield County, and so we're trying to figure out ways to use that more and to get more people down there. So we're having a lot more fun runs and marathons and runs through the woods and things like this, and in addition to putting some amenities, some playgrounds nearby. And so that's also a big deal. Of course, Richmond Volleyball Club is in Chesterfield, and that's a big one, as along with Swim RBA. So we have a number of draws, but regionally, River City at $21 million a year has the largest impact economically, and so we're looking to grow that. And of course, you may have heard, we have a private funded venture next door, and that is this lake project right next to 288 in Genito, which will feature a surfing park. So for those surfers, and you all look like surfers in here, so I expect to see you out there when it's done. But there will be a hotel, a couple of hotels, some breweries, retail, office, and then residential, along with a surf park, man-made surf park there. A lot like what Pharrell is doing down in Virginia Beach, but maybe on a little bit downscale from what they're doing. So, very good. All right, we'll move to the second question, and this time I'll start with Michael. If you would talk to us about the history of why you're newer in Prince William, right? So why did you all do this? What's the history? Why did you start thinking about this, of doing sports tourism, and how do you think your position materialized in terms of discussions that were had or experiences? And just some history of how you got to where you are now.
All right, so background for my position. It really started a few years before I even came on. Started having, like I said, more and more events that were coming in. Orienteering was a good one. The first time we had the U.S. or the Quicken Open with the PGA back in 2015. That was another major event. And then in 2017, we had our first USA BMX national that was held there. At that time, after that, the county recognized that the economic impact that sports and sports tourism was having, and so they wanted to create more of a focus on that. So as time progressed, they went through the planning process of this, figured out how it was going to be feasible to create this position and what was going to go into it, and late 2019, they opened up the position. They created the position and opened it up. I had just recently moved to Virginia from Texas. I was doing the same thing back in Texas, and the position came open, and I immediately jumped on it and interviewed, and the rest is history as far as that goes. It was serendipitous for me, to say the least. I never thought before I actually got into sports tourism that would be something I'd ever do. But as soon as I got into it, I fell in love with it. From the aspect of the networking, the basic sales, there is a level of sales with this, but the opportunity that I have to create something, to bring something into my community, whether it's county or city, that will impact not just myself and what I do, to make myself look good, but more importantly, it gives back to people and creates more for the community, and that's what I love. I've tried to do that since the moment I basically got out of high school. So I've been from going into the military to volunteer activities while I was in college after that, to now and beyond. So I'm thoroughly involved in sports, probably more than my wife actually wants me to be. But I love it, so.
I'll give a little bit of history first, more so for the region, and then Henrico in particular. If Jack Barry, the head of our DMO, were sitting here, or Richmond Region Tourism, he would tell you sports tourism goes back 70 plus years here in Central Virginia with the start of Richmond Raceway. And similarly in Henry County for Martinsville Speedway. And you look at the impact that those two NASCAR tracks have had on the Commonwealth for more than 70 years, and the amount of people that they drive to our two areas, again, who come and watch the competition at the racetracks or competitors themselves. So now you have that as a pretty strong basis here in Central Virginia. And for those that don't know, I've actually ran the raceway here for the last 11 years before I ventured into this new opportunity with Henrico County. But then, as we have park facilities and baseball diamonds and things like that, and then you start seeing the Youth Little League associations, and then the travel sports then started to emerge, 20-some years ago. And they're using our fields and bringing in out-of-town teams to compete against our athletes here and filling up our hotel rooms. and eating in our restaurants, everything that goes with tourism. And then we started to put this brand on sports tourism. And then it got really competitive. And the bid process now to go out and bid on events is extremely competitive. And at some point we can talk more in depth on that. Don't want to lose the history piece here. But then we started to develop very purpose-built facilities. And again, we have that in Henrico. We have an RFI out now for a 4-diamond complex. It's very purpose-built for travel and sports tourism events. So you kind of look at that evolution of sports tourism. And now we start thinking, again, way down the road, what other facilities don't we have in the region? So the facility at Virginia Center Commons is an example of that, where there's a lot of discussion that Richmond Region Tourism did a few years ago regarding a facility review, a sports facility review here for our region. What are we really good at? We were really good on flat field, really good in soccer and lacrosse, pretty good in baseball, pretty good in softball. Where was the gap? The gap was indoor. We were leaving about $33 million a year on the table with no indoor facility. So again, I keep bringing this facility up because I'm intimately involved in it, because we originally were going to do it at the racetrack. And then through changes in my previous company, the county kept the vision going of the indoor facility, and now it's coming out of the ground, like I said, at Virginia Center Commons. So that's, again, kind of the evolution of sports here in the region, and certainly, with Chris' reference with what they're doing over in Chesterfield as well. Again, all these pieces and parts need to work together. So I'll give you another great example of that. In my 5 months on the job, I've probably had, a couple dozen people say, you guys missed the boat. Should have done an indoor track at that facility over at Virginia Center Commons. No, we're not, because VCU is going to build one, and you don't need 2 indoor tracks within 10 miles of one another. So we've got to be smart about the growth and development and facility development here in the region as well. So again, we can talk more on that. Just how my position materialized, I will say this: sports tourism lived under recreation and parks. We had Don Miller, who oversaw our tourism brand over there at Visit Henrico, and Michael McCormick, who interfaced a lot with the Richmond Region Tourism team here to book events, to execute events, things like that. Again, the business of sports tourism is growing so quickly that to have a team that's focused on keeping up with that evolution and development of sports tourism and facility development is a vision that our county undertook, which again led to the position that I have here now. So our job, just really quickly, facility development, new facility development, critical maintenance of our existing facilities, and that's working with our recreation and parks partners as we look at our existing parks and recreation facilities. My job, in my experience, is to look at them with a different set of eyes. The pickleball facility is a great example of that. Recreation and parks, they were looking to build exactly what they already had out there, 12 more of what they had. We come in raising our hands, say, hold on a second, wait, if we just do X, Y, and Z, then we can go bid on these types of an event. So those are the kinds of discussions that we're trying to push forward in our county and in our region as well, because we all benefit when we have all these visitors come through our area. So facility development, critical maintenance, and then bidding on events. And Michael mentioned this as well, homegrown events. We're actually out looking at what kind of events can we own and operate ourselves and not rely on an outside promoter to bring an event here. We got to stroke a big incentive check on and on and on. So, Gene, I'm passionate about this piece of the business. I'll talk all day. I'll talk afterwards too if you want.
I think that's why this question is so interesting, is because the operational piece is we want to, increase efficiency, that we have our visitors having a great time, but also our citizens, right? And so how do we do that? How do we keep the place lit all the time, whatever that place might be? Over the last 5 years, I think, somebody's got to mention COVID here, so I'll do it. We've seen a little bit of a dip, kind of looks like a U in terms of economic impact. But we're right back, this last fiscal year, 22, we are right back into it in terms of economic impact. So even during the height of the pandemic, we only went down about $5 million in overall economic impact with sports tourism. And so I just think that tells you what the strength is, what the demand is for these tournaments, for these facilities, and for individual localities' role either solely or regionally to bring them in. The evolution of sports quest in the county is kind of a tortured story, but we had a gentleman come and build these fields, and then went bankrupt, and then Shaw Industries, which is a turf manufacturer, bought those fields, and then we in turn purchased the complex a few years ago for $5.5 million, which was $5.5 million really well spent, and turned it into a park. So we've tried to take success out of the jaws of failure maybe, and I think we've done that. With regard to planning, we are we're always looking backwards so that we can look forward. And I think some of the lessons that we've learned are, listen to Richmond Region Tourism, because they are the experts, at least in our region, on usage and what the demand factor is for each of these facilities. Indoor, Dennis, you mentioned indoor is a big one. And we've noticed that too. There's a lot of demand for indoor fields. So indoor field hockey, indoor soccer, indoor other sports. Indoor soccer wears me out. I can't play that, but I'm good for at least 3 minutes. But pickleball is another one. Pickleball tournaments and those facilities are a big thing, indoor and outdoor. And so we've looked at that, and we're planning and plotting accordingly. All right. Next question. Give us an example of someone who you think has benefited from sports tourism in your area. And it could be individuals, could be schools, could be businesses. But I'll pass that on.
Well, I'll start with the hospitality industry. When you talk about, in our county, $60 million of economic impact this year alone, off of 160 tournaments, it's a big number. And if you saw the Virginia Tourism Corporation numbers that were released last month, and just direct visitor spending was $1.3 billion in Henrico County. Now that takes all the segments of tourism: business, leisure, sports, recreation, on and on. But the hospitality industry has really benefited from that. And then I would say construction too, since we're building so many new things. But yeah, I think the other part of it too is I think we've mentioned this, is what are the resident benefits from this as well? So resident access to these facilities, resident usage. I'll say this again, I preach this every day. When we go out and bid on events to come here, the outside teams that are coming, they're coming to play our athletes. And I'll call our 8U kids playing baseball, they're our athletes. We're developing talent here. They're having fun playing sports. That's another benefit from that. So there's just all this trickle-down effects. If a young boy or girl falls in love with soccer or baseball because they're playing tournaments at one of our facilities and they keep it going through high school, that's great. Those are great stories. I will say this too, I tend to look at sports tourism through my kids' eyes. I have 2 that are still participating, and we travel all up and down the mid-Atlantic, going to Nashville for a tournament. So I go there with a critical view now, given this job that I have, to think about what was the booking process like for the hotel? Was it convenient to get to the facilities? Did we have good places to eat? When we had downtime, did we have something for the kids to do? That's all a part of this business now. And I mention all those things because it goes back to the question, who's benefiting the most? And again, I think the hospitality industry is crushing it off of us.
Would it be bad to say myself?
No, go ahead.
No. I'm going to say this, very similar. Hospitality, number one. Since my position has been created and we started bringing in more events, our hotels have, been able to benefit from that greatly. And that goes into, just like you said, COVID. Sports tourism, especially, in our county at least, did not really go down. We had a couple of events that were canceled, but for the most part, our wheels kept spinning. We kept going the whole time. We just had to figure out new ways of doing those things. But that also benefited us greatly because it helped us to take a step back and evaluate, what we were doing and how we were doing it, our approach to it. And one of the things that I'm looking at as I look back at what the operations was before I came in, and now, having that time to evaluate everything through COVID and now coming out of it, how we actually focus on our events and what is the purpose of it. Because we do everything from, not just, trying to, source these events and bring them in, but after that, all these actual servicing to it. And that was one of the big parts. I keep going back to USA BMX. One of the main reasons why they decided to come back and offer this larger contract with me is because of the servicing that I did. I took looked at it, took the approach of how can I make this event not just good, but great, to where the people that are participating, whether it's the participants, the spectators, the volunteers, they all can walk away with it telling a good story. And it happened. I walked around during the event with my, my Prince William Sports shirt on, and people would stop by and just stop me and just thank me for how well put on and well organized this was. So that goes a long ways to, trying to say who's benefiting. And I want to say it's the community along with the hoteliers, but it's, our program is building, like I said. There's a lot I want to change. There's a lot I still want to refocus on and do. So it's going to ever evolve, but that's where we're going to is not so much, yes, the hotels and things like that, but it's going to be, our focus is how can our sports tourism affect our community is where we're trying to get to. So I think that's where our focus is going.
So for many of you, inner city visit, who went on inner city visit? Anybody in here was in Columbus, Ohio this year. And one of the things that they have is this great, I was just telling Michael, this great street for arenas and stadiums. And you just walk down the street, there's baseball, you keep going, there's hockey, and they've just built a brand new stadium for the Columbus Crew. We have any MLS fans in here, soccer? Okay, I got one, thank you. Even if that was a courtesy, I appreciate it. This facility struck me because I went on a tour of the facility, talked to some of the folks in there who run it, and I had a question, okay, so how many games do you have a year? Well, we have 17 home games, okay. And then what else do you do with this facility? And the answer, they just kind of looked back at me like, what do you mean, what else do we do with this facility? And so I said, well, does the community have a chance to come in here? Not really. We have some executive events. We have some things like that. We do some private parties and things like that. I said, so nobody else uses these fields, and they're used 17 days out of the year. Yeah, where do they practice? Well, they practice at the old stadium. So anyway, I say that to say this $330 million facility. We're looking, I think all of us here on this panel, looking for ways to make the experience great for our citizens. And they can do that. Amenities are important. Going to the games, I'm sure, are important. But if you can also use those fields Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, and then Sundays when the game is or what have you, you're doing great things for a number of things. First thing is your kids, right? Because your kids are getting a gold star opportunity to play on facilities and in facilities that are excellent. And we're not going to build junk, so we're going to do something nice and make sure that it's good for them and that it's at top of the top shelf. The other thing is, when people come to town, we want them to come to town, drop money, and then leave, right? That sounds like a good plan for sports tourism. And so if Dennis and Henrico's doing his job, Prince William's doing their job, and Chesterfield, we're doing our job, we can start to put packages together for families. And it's not just families in our own localities, but families, you know, in Henrico who may want to visit Henrico, have a little staycation, or maybe in Chesterfield who want to visit Prince William. And you just grow the whole business that way by doing that. But you know, there's certainly an economic impact, I think, too, on taxes, because if they're dropping these dollars here, it means that I don't have to raise my real estate rate, maybe like I thought I had to, or maybe we can keep something else lower, or offer, you know, some other lower rate or rebate or what have you. So anyway, that's also an important consideration. All right, last question. What are the long-term goals for sports tourism in your county, and how are you planning to achieve them? And we'll go quick fire since we've got to get some questions in here.
Long-term goals, okay. New facilities, number one. I'm dying for those. Educate those who, first off, number one is educate those above me, all my stakeholders. That is one of the, actually my goals for this year is to go to approach those stakeholders, those who, you know, sign the checks and make those final decisions, and educate them on the benefits of what sports tourism really is, how it actually helps the community, how it brings in more revenue for the county. But as a whole, what that does is, you know, translate back into funds. Well, you know, it creates more budget for me to be able to do more events, which, you know, in turn, the more revenue that comes in goes back into our current facilities, our parks, you know, our rec centers, things like that that our community needs, you know, to stay active with, you know, our local clubs and leagues that run constantly. You know, we have these facilities that are great facilities, but still need constant upgrades. You know, we're looking at, you know, as a, you know, county, how do we fund these upgrades constantly? Well, one of the best ways to do it is to bring in more events that, you know, directly reflect and, you know, revolve around that. So getting our stakeholders to understand that and then invest into those type of things, you know, whether it's a larger outdoor complex, kind of like River City, totally jealous of, or, you know, a big indoor facility, and then more niche sports, you know, type of, you know, facilities, whether it's pickleball, you know, I talk about, you know, there's tech ball now, that's a weird sport. Cornhole, you know, there's things like that. So there's lots of different needs, whether it's indoor or outdoor for some of these sports. So it's finding the things that fit your, you know, dynamic, where you are, and what direction you want to do. For me, it, you know, largely just goes around long-term plans, is trying to build those, but really just continue educating those stakeholders so that way we can bring more to it and just continue to grow the Prince William sports brand and, you know, the Visit Prince William as a whole, to just, you know, provide more long-term and actually be a contributing factor to our community.
Yeah, I mean, facility development's going to drive a lot of this conversation. And then, but I think, you know, short term for us, I know it was long term, but I'm building there. Short term for us is business retention. Again, the county's been in this sports tourism game for a long time. So if you have 160 tournaments, and through those tournaments you're dealing with a lot of the same tournament organizers that bring events here in the spring and bring them back in the fall. So business retention is going to be really important. That's our base. Now it's about new business development and to grow off of that base. So for us, long-term goals will be a lot of bid-on events and a lot of homegrown events. And those types of events will add entertainment value to our region. So it's going to give the spectator experience an opportunity to see events that they have not seen in our region for a long, long time. Hasn't been an NCAA men's basketball tournament here since the 90s. we're going to go solve for that. Those opportunities to bid on events, and I've found this interesting too when I'm talking to people about this new job that I'm doing, and we bid on events. They think like we're bidding on an event in November for next month. No, we're engaged in a bid process right now for the years 2027 through 2030. So you better be able to think down the road and have a vision of what you want out of your facilities so that you can get in the bid process for some of these events. That's how far out some event organizers, promoters, whether it's the NCAA or a national governing body, are looking to book their events. If we're successful in winning any of those bids, it will add not just to the economic impact of that event coming to town, but it will increase the viewer spectator experience for our residents as well. And then again, with the other building that's proposed, there's a whole other side of my new business. We're talking sports, but we are the Sports and Entertainment Authority, so I have to put my entertainment hat on as well and think about concerts and family shows and all those other things as well. So that'll be another big piece of our business in driving, again, some A-level acts and talent here to a much bigger facility when it's constructed down the road.
Those are great comments, gentlemen, and I think that's right. What are the gaps? What are the gaps in our region? And somebody pointed out we have a World Cup coming up. Anybody watching the World Cup games coming up? Yeah, I'm one soccer fan. Thank you. And so one question might be, well, why couldn't we have a World Cup match in Richmond, Virginia, somewhere, the region? Why couldn't we have, or in Northern Virginia? Why couldn't we have, an MLS match? And so what are the requirements? How do we get from point A to point B, and identifying those gaps seems to me to be very critical. Some of these facilities, Dennis, you were talking about, what does my facility have to have in order to compete in 2027 contracts? And it's just the interesting list of things that are on there, like Wi-Fi. Does the place have Wi-Fi? Can everybody get on at the same time without crashing the system? And it's easy to set up a Wi-Fi system at home, right? We have this little box, and well, for some of us, I saw someone say no. But when you talk about 20,000 people, 15,000 people at one event trying to get on Wi-Fi at the same time, that's a much more expensive system to contend with. And so these are the types of things that we're looking at to try to increase the engagement of tournament promoters and interest, and as well as our citizens when they're out there for their tournaments. So very interesting. So I can speak in the first person just in Chesterfield or in and around River City's Sportsplex. We actually have a special focus area planned for this area. We've sort of drawn this oddly shaped circle around the area, and we are intentionally planning this to be a success. So we've got the surf park, and then the amenities that are going to be increased at River City to include the 4 fields, but also an all-ability playground there in the middle of it, so families can go, and no matter who you are, you can enjoy yourself. Or we'll have like a wet, what do they call it? Wet park, but splash pad facility there. And then a cross-country facility there. Someone's laughing at that. Yeah, that's a good. And so we are trying to intentionally plan this area, make sure it's walkable, make sure we have some good restaurants, and then we're trying to also figure out what to do with Southside Speedway. You may or may not have seen that in the news. So we have a big meeting this Wednesday to go over some of these items. But being intentional, I think, about planning the area is also important. Make sure we have enough parking. Parking's a big topic that hasn't come up, but you're starting to think, okay, we've got to start going vertical in some of these areas to accommodate all of these folks that we're inviting to our counties for these events, and making sure that everybody has a good time, is not frustrated in the process. With that said, I want to thank these gentlemen, but before I do that, let's open it up for questions. Who may have a question, sir?
Yeah, just a quick comment and then a quick question behind that. Y'all were talking about MLS games consider doing preseason games with no home team advantage? You know, just a thought, but one question that, my question to you guys would be, all this pretty much started from rec associations and group. How involved are the rec associations in y'all area? Because certain areas out of rural Virginia, right from Nottingham County, they tend to, anything that encroaches upon the rec association, they buck against hard. And you may have heard this term, daddy ball. You know, you're taking daddy ball away from someone who thinks that they and only they can get their child to where they need to be through YouTube and not through another, you know, a talented coach, for lack of a better term. But it's, how does that work in y'all's areas? Is there still rec associations, and is it a good relationship?
I'll pass this shortly. I'll just say my son's in T-ball right now, and that we have some parents who I call supers, who you know, think this is it. You know, we're one step away from Major League, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like, all right, well, you need to calm down, maybe take a rest, and let the professionals, as it were, people with actual talent, coach these children. So that is frustrating from a parent's standpoint. I'll pass it on for maybe a little more detailed answer on that.
Well, I'm one of those. But I actually went and got educated for it. So I actually got my licenses for coaching travel soccer. So I actually do coach travel soccer right now. So it's funny that you mentioned that. As far as, you know, working with rec programs in our clubs and things like that, that's still something I'm working on. And I think most counties and, you know, different destinations are going to say the same thing. They're very protective of their fields and what they do. And when you try to introduce something new or ask them to share, that's a very sensitive subject in some areas. So it's a balance act with that of how to approach them to make sure that you're saying the right things and basically trying to offer them something in return, so that way it doesn't turn into something that you don't want it to turn into. So that's going to constantly be a work in progress unless you build facilities that are dedicated to only sports tourism. You'll always have that issue of, you know, like you said, daddy ball and rec leagues and clubs that don't like to share and want to do everything themselves. So.
The youth associations, they're the lifeblood of our facilities. I mean, hands down, and they always will be. And they get first shot at our facilities. Mrs. O'Bannon's here, she's the chair of our board of supervisors from the Tuckahoe district. They got an amazing baseball complex at Tuckahoe Sports. That youth organization is one of the top youth organizations in the Commonwealth of Virginia, if not in this region. They will always be that way because they've got some fine facilities to play in. Where do we come in? We come in sometimes second or third on the list to get access to those facilities. But we do get access to them because we do have good coordination, good communication. All that stuff has to work for us to be able to, again, go out and bid on an event that's a year away or 2 years away or 3 years away. Like, we are talking to our youth baseball and soccer associations right now about things that we're bidding on so that they can hold those dates for us. That's the only way this is going to work, outside of some very purpose-built facilities that would be dedicated strictly for tournament play. So that's kind of our story. I would say this as well. We've got an amazing swim aquatics center, Nova Swim Aquatics, that repurposed a 2-story Macy's. And again, they are a top-tier team nationally. They do a lot with tournament play already, or with competitions that don't involve us. I mean, I've been out there 2 out of the last 3 weekends. They had a 400-athlete swim competition and a 500-athlete swim competition back-to-back. They didn't use us. They didn't need us. They didn't use our RT because they were just bringing in their other competitors. So there are those things that are happening in our community as well. We want to work with them on a Big Swim Invitational. So again, it just kind of goes back to that communication piece and that coordination, because everyone has their mission for what they want for the facilities that they're using, and then here we come in, you know, asking for some dates and things as well.
Next question, sir.
That's bid fees, you mentioned it, but I know in dealing with other areas, it seems to have gotten out of control. Are you seeing any changes in them, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in bid on further, and then they want free facilities on top of that?
Yeah, so the question is about bid fees and then free rent and all that. We're seeing all that across the board right now. And it's only going to continue to increase. And we have to get more aggressive with our incentives, or they're going to go somewhere else. Like Michael said, like Chris has said, we do in this region, we do a great job executing events for our tournament promoters when they come. They love to do events here because the attention to detail that we have, the guest amenities that we provide, the amenities to their athletes that we provide, we'll put ours up against anybody up and down the East Coast. But someone who is a tournament organizer is running a business, and he or she's sitting there with all these other localities throwing a bunch of money at them. Sometimes they don't make the decision on what's best for my teams. They're going to make a decision on what's best for their bottom line because someone's stroking them a check. That's where the competition is. We're seeing that more and more. So it's a little scary, not gonna lie, it's a little scary out there right now because, again, COVID was a little bit of a dip. Go back to 08, Jack, again, I keep quoting Jack Berry, but sports tourism in Jack's view was recession-proof in 08. And these tournament organizers know that. So, yeah, I hope I got to your answer, but it is competitive out there. And as we look at bigger events for our newer, bigger facilities, that's only going to be a bigger number. And they are looking for free stuff. They're looking for free rent, X amount of hotel rooms for their traveling staff and everything. We have to evaluate if it's something we want to bid on. Does it make the right business sense for our community? Does it have the right economic impact? I mean, you got to put a lot of study into this.
Are you building that into your budget then?
We are building some of that into our budget. Again, we're a little bit different on the Sports and Entertainment Authority side. At some point, when we just got framed up a few months ago, and we will also be responsible for our own revenue streams as well. So again, very similar to economic development. And then as you look at our revenue streams, where do they go? Some of it will be for facility maintenance, upkeep, and support the facilities that we use. Others will be for incentives. But Richmond Region Tourism does a great job on the incentive side. We have a tourism improvement district that will be coming online. All that is to help us build an incentive war chest, if you will, to go out and bid on these events.
Yes.
Thank y'all for being here. Donna Price, Chair of Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. We have a lot of pressure being, brought to our board to try and increase the opportunities for sports tourism. And I used to live in Prince William, I used to live in Virginia Beach, great facilities. With all due respect, you represent the second, fifth, and sixth largest counties by population in Virginia. Albemarle 16th. If we added the city of Charlottesville, we move all the way up to 13, which is less than half the population of the smallest county that y'all represent. What advice do you have for the smaller population areas so we can't compete with what you've got, but to try and improve our facilities in those areas?
I love this question, mainly because, well, one, I'm always a visionary, but two, I live actually close to there. I live in Madison, so I'm just right outside of Charlottesville, and I spend most of my time, honestly, in Charlottesville day to day. I coach, and my son plays for soccer, so I'm there all the time. With that being said, there are a lot of facilities already there within Albemarle and Charlottesville together that can be utilized. It's just trying to figure out how to do that. And that's where having somebody, an industry expert like myself or Dennis or Chris, be able to come in and help with that and say, these are the things that, you can do now that will help strengthen it. That will go a long ways, whether that's actually bringing somebody in a full-time position or just on a consultant level. Those will help you out immensely. I know, from the soccer standpoint, or just flat fields in general, your rectangular fields, there's a lot of opportunities there. Partnerships with UVA and their amenities and resources. Trying to figure out those avenues. If you're looking to try to build more facilities, and you're wondering whether or not it's funding from the county or the city, or being able to use private. I know there's a lot of people around that area that have money to just throw at places. I know that's how one of your baseball facilities there got built because of John Grisham.
Code Creek.
His kids play baseball, and he's a big baseball fan, so he threw a bunch of money at that. So there's those private resources as well. I would love to see where that goes, just because we could use some more lights at a couple of the soccer fields, but.
Mr. Rojas, thank you. We appreciate and I accept your kind offer to
You will have to ask permission of my county chair to try to plan that.
Just from a soccer tournament.
I'll just really quickly just say, find your niche. Michael's talked about BMX a couple of times. That's a niche. You can build off of that. Find that one thing that none of us are doing really well right now. It's out there. And I caution our team sometimes. We need to be careful not to try and be all things to everybody, because then we're not going to do some things very well. If you try to be all things to everybody, something's going to fall through the cracks. You're going to lose focus. We have to keep our focus on what we do well. So there are those opportunities out there to find what's the next BMX thing that's not happening in the Commonwealth. Go find that. And then I would go back to some of your youth associations as well and see if you can build something with them. I'll give you a really quick example. I grew up little Ohio, river town, eastern Ohio, across the river, Wheeling, West Virginia. They have a 6 or 8 diamond complex. They've been doing this tournament branded the Beast of the East for 20-some years, right? And we go back there like, oh man, all these teams are coming in, filling up our hotel rooms. Can't get into a restaurant. And it's been going for 20-some years. Now we're like, hey, we got this sports tourism brand. Those guys have been killing it way before sports tourism was a thing in little Wheeling, West Virginia. So find that opportunity. And they built this tournament as a must-attend. If you're a top caliber team up and down the Mid-Atlantic, you got to go play in the Beast of the East.
I'm going to add one more thing to that for you. So Prince William is very similar to your county on the fact that we don't have a large outdoor complex by itself, something that we can actually host, large events like River City does, where everything's all in one complex. But what I found and what I've done is build these relationships with organizers and get them to understand that you have facilities that are ready to use currently, and you have enough to house them, to host these events, but they're just going to have to be spread out between 2 or 3 facilities or more. So it's a matter of how you sell that to them, how you approach that with them, and show them that the benefit of you use these different parks and facilities that are all around each other, but show them what is also with that group together, the hotels, the restaurants that are all within that same little corridor, that bubble, what the actual commute is between each one of these facilities. You show all that to them, they're not going to turn away. They're going to be just as engaged at those conversations of hosting an event with you, having to use 2 or 3 facilities, as it would be going to River City and only having to use 1. So, don't be afraid to actually go ahead and start approaching some of those organizers for that and look into how you can actually be able to do that.
I'll add one practical thing, and that is designate someone in your county or your locality to be the face of sports tourism, for starters. And it can be an add-on to an existing job just to get it going if you want, or it can be its own position. But the other thing is, connect them with the growing industry experts on sport. The U.S. Sports Congress will be here in Richmond in a few weeks. It was held in Frisco, Texas last year. I flew out with Richmond Region Tourism to see a city that has been planned around sports tourism. That is to say, they build the stadium, then they build around it. And it's an amazing place to visit, and talking to their economic development director out there and their EDA director, and they don't hide, they're proud of having an economic development authority. There's none of this, we're ashamed of it. They have their own brand. They are absolutely making an awesome place to go and have a great time as a visitor. And by the way, high school teams use the Dallas Star facility, which is an indoor facility. All the high school teams there get to practice at this indoor facility. It's remarkable. So I would just say that's just a piece of practical advice. Get somebody to be the face and to start learning this and to bring it back to your board and get plugged in. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
With the risk, because the county administrator is here.
Oh, okay, all right.
Ruth Larson, James City, and we are looking at doing a regional effort for a sports complex. But in the meantime, where I get frustrated is the rec department is the sports tourism that works with the DMO, and I don't know that our recreation, great people, we have great facilities, but I'm not sure they understand the tourism aspect of it. And you all obviously have your role is laser being focused on sports tourism. How are you working? I mean, did you find that before you had those roles, was it sort of the same thing happening? And I will say, I'm a mom of 2 collegiate athletes, so I grew up, that's all we did. And I went everywhere but Virginia. And it was so frustrating to me that we were leaving so much money on the table, because I would go to swim meets that lasted for 5 days. I was going to grocery stores, restaurants, buying TJ Maxx. I mean, you name it, we were going there. There's a lot of money out there. And no matter how bad things got, and with jobs, we still traveled. We still did our daughter's sports. That was above all else. So, I'm curious how you work through that, recreation department ownership to saying we have to make this bigger.
If you can identify at least a number right now that sports tourism brings to your county, and it doesn't have to be a small one, but whatever the number is, you can use that as leverage, I would argue, to create a position within Parks and Rec. The department has to change its culture. It's no longer serving only citizens who live there. It now has to be thinking about these other things that visitors want, amenities that visitors want. And I would argue, and folks over here may have a different view, but I think it's important for it to be in Parks and Rec, because often those things that visitors want are the same things that citizens will want, but may not tell you all the time. And so there's a real benefit to getting that expertise in your Parks and Rec. They're already maintaining the place, right? They're already doing a great job at the facility, but now we're just asking them, okay, you're also going to be working with these tournament organizers and the parents and the staff of these teams and medical folks who come out to these tournaments. And it's a little bit different, right? It kind of ruffles some feathers. We started in Chesterfield. We created this position, this first sports tourism position in 2012. And so just in 10 years, the amount has doubled what we see, over doubled what we see from that in the county. And I think that's in part a result of putting that talent, that skill set in your team and making it, giving it the room to blossom from there.
So I'm actually part of DPRT. So Our CBB, about 5 years ago, merged with our Parks and Rec department. So now we're the Department of Parks, Rec, and Tourism. So that has been very beneficial in a lot of ways. Number one, more knowledge of when the facilities are available, so more access to them. But like you said, trying to get the Parks and Recs department to understand sports tourism, or tourism in general, and how it benefits them, but the county as a whole. That is still a work in progress. It's always going to be, but finding somebody to actually be specific in that role within and help educate and build that is going to be 100% the best route to go. I constantly have talks with my director of recreation and the sports services team that handles all the leagues and clubs and scheduling out all the fields and everything. So we have an annual what we call tournament meeting with all the leagues, all the clubs from the county and some of the local organizers. Yes, fill up a great big calendar of everything that they are doing. So then I have to try to find and identify my couple of little opportunities from there. But you build those relationships and you start to get to where you can say, okay, I know you have planned on doing this or you want to do this, but I have this that I can bring in that's going to do this for the county or this for the community. Let's work this out and figure this out. Or, maybe we can partner with it. You can be labeled as a sponsor or something like that for this event. Find ways to make it where it's beneficial to that club or that organization, Parks and Recs in general, how it's going to benefit them to actually open up those opportunities for you, and you'll start building. So for me this year, like I said, I'm still trying to build mine. For 2023, I already have almost double the number of events for this calendar year coming in than what I did all of 2022. So it's just a matter of how hard you work and finding those opportunities and talking to the right people and making the most of it. So it's a work in progress, but it's building that person is going to be vital.
I'll say this too, for the stage that we're in, Henrico started in Recs and Parks. I think I mentioned that with 2 people earlier. But I will tell you this, we can't do what we do to bid on events, to host events, to whatever, go after events without our partners at Recreation Parks. They maintain the facilities, they set up the facilities, they're there on the ground helping us operate the events on the weekend. We can't do what we do, or we can't deliver against this vision now for the Sports and Entertainment Authority without Recreation and Parks. So that's one piece for us. The other piece is, again, I think where we started, you mentioned sports service, and we had a division within Recreation and Parks, sports services, so they're the ones focusing on booking, keeping the calendar, and all that, and that's how one of the positions evolved to now working for the Sports and Entertainment Authority, where he's out actively working on bids or working with our DMO to partner on bids. We get a lot of our leads and our RFP that we respond to with our DMO having a seat at the table. So that's another tremendous resource that helps us go after things here in our Central Virginia region.
Sir?
Hey, thank you. I'm Brad Pollack from Shenandoah County. And I just want to thank you all for opening up my eyes to some opportunities even in a small rural county. Because what I had in mind when I walked in here was that Rice Resort, where I grew up, is attracting an incredible number of bicyclists and mountain bikers. And that's wonderful. But the fact is that Shenandoah County, 1/5 of it is in national. So we have endless trails, endless opportunities for just the sort of thing that you're talking about. But I needed to get a government perspective as a member of the Board of Supervisors before I go see the manager of this resort that I've been involved with for 45 because he's going to want to keep his money and his profit and his business, and I'm talking about expanding, mountain biking to the entire county or specific places like our knob. But you've been very helpful, kind of opening my mind and realizing that our tourism people can be involved with my thinking, and our Parks and Recreation people. So, so I just want to thank you all for that.
You're welcome.
So, real quick, with that, I love hearing that, by the way, number one, but I'll be talking about trying to figure out the opportunities and trying to grow those things. Also look, it's, Prince William is, a larger county, but we are still a small fish compared to, Richmond region over here. So we have to find ways that we can be able to, compete as a whole, because we don't have all the same facilities and amenities as some of the others, Virginia Beach, Richmond region, even, Blue Ridge. So what we've done is we've actually partnered with some of our surrounding counties to create, like Chris said when he was introducing me, SportsNOVA. So that is a regional alliance between some of the Northern Virginia counties. And what our goal is to, not just market the Northern Virginia area, but eventually start bringing in events that will actually be able to be shared, or be able to, overlap between our different counties. And that's something that you can explore also, is how you can actually partner with your surrounding counties to make some of these events, larger or more attractive, or actually attract those outside organizers to actually bring in those larger events that will drive more tourism to your destination. So.
We're down to our last 5 minutes. Yes, sir.
Can I assume that Chesterfield and Henrico are working under the Parks and Rec banner? Is that correct?
I think, so at least from a facility standpoint, Parks and Rec maintains all these facilities.
For you two guys. But for this gentleman, he's authority. I'd like him to speak, or someone to speak of why you found it advantageous for y'all to create authority for that.
Two things. One is our facility development. So the facility that's coming online that I mentioned in Virginia Center Commons is going to open up big opportunities, way bigger than youth travel sports. Same with the arena that's coming shortly after that. So it's a different kind of skill set, I guess, is the best way to say that. Sports tourism is a big business. So the evolution of the authority, again, was to partner with economic development on facility development, and where it makes sense to combine our efforts on sports and retail, hospitality, whatever that may be. So it's just, I guess the simple answer is the business of sports tourism, I can't say it enough, is skyrocketing. So the ones that are going to, again, I think to be competitive in the bids that are out there, I'm not coming up with the right words, but it's very purpose-driven in that from being aggressive, having the right incentives, having the right operational aspects to be able to pull off bigger events. That's kind of where my group's coming in. We're going to continue to do all of our youth stuff. It is the backbone of who we are. That will never go away. We need that. That's the foundation. We're just trying to add the next layer now, and the next layer after that. So when you start talking about bidding on an NCAA event, it's a different conversation than we've had for a long time. So I hope I'm answering that to your satisfaction. The business is changing. The game is changing in this sector of sports tourism. So if you want to go after bigger events, it's a different process. It's a different timeline. Again, as I mentioned, we're looking at submitting a response for events that will be happening 2027 through 2030. I mean, it's a different mindset. I hope I answered that okay.
Yes, you did. Our county, Middlesex County, is working with the economic development for some of the same things you talked about, but also how we package with the advantages of our county and why you should be coming there. I'd like a follow-up question for any and all of you. When you have, and I'm not talking about the mega events that you just spoke about, but let's say a larger type event. Can you guys manage it from your end, the whole process? And let's use baseball or softball as an example, or soccer. Do you guys take care of course, the marketing and the hiring of your referee or umpire staff? Do y'all control that yourself? Or is there some situations where you may subcontract that? Let's use food as an example. If the event's too big for what you have, you may bring in some subcontractor food type preparation for that. If you could speak about that for me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly at River City, the Parks and Rec staff runs everything at the facility. But these tournament organizers are called so for a reason. They come in, they have a list of people, they're checking them in, they hire the refs. We don't get involved with that piece. We can connect people to resources if they have a shortfall in this area or that and make things work for them via coordinator of sorts. But we don't take the whole thing on altogether, and then we just find that to be a better operational method.
Yeah, very, very similar. You know, even with the events that we're creating ourselves, you still outsource to certain things. You know, I'm a team of one, so my wife would kill me if I had to, do everything by myself because I'd never be home. So you have to find ways to outsource that. Like you said, the organizers already have their list of people, but they will lean on you and ask you for help, whether it's giving you the opportunity to send out those leads for hotels first before they use a third-party booking agency. I've done that a lot with them and create landing pages on our website for those specific events where our community and different participants and spectators, not only can they find the information for that tournament specifically on our website, but they can also then find information specific to our destination, all in the same resource and location, versus those participants going to that specific organizer's website and only finding the registration page. Now they have everything all there. So that's one huge way that we work with them on it. But food-wise, referees, things like that, a lot of times it's all outsourced. And that's just because you don't have enough staffing to manage all that. And I don't think you want to try to go and convince somebody to give you more budget for that, because that's a lot of budget.
I'll use a quick example. So on a youth tournament, Capital Fall Classic softball or soccer is going on right now at Glover Park, Stryker Park. So this will be week number 3. So what do we do with that? Well, we provide them marketing and communication support. We have 2 people on our staff. One is an event operations person who's interfacing with the tournament organizer and Parks and Rec to make sure that we deliver everything that we need to for that tournament organizers, tents, tables, chairs, whatever that may be. Fields ready, restrooms are ready, all that stuff. And then someone else who's a client relations person, again, looking at the event contract and making sure that we are fulfilling everything that we have in our event contract with the tournament organizer. We're unique in that, and we're just getting started with our 5-6 months in. But that's how we provide services to our tournament organizers. But again, we can't do it without Recreation and Parks, because they have the manpower to do it. We will never have a staff of whatever they have. Never, ever, ever. So we need them to, again, get the ball fields ready and be there on the ground to help execute events. But then it is a combination of outside third-party organizers third-party that they could be working parking or security or whatever. And I'll leave you with one last thing, because the other people that have a seat at our table when we're putting an event together is our Henrico Police Department. Again, we can't do anything at our facilities without them, and they are on the ground with us at every one of these tournaments, helping with parking, helping with traffic control, all that stuff. So I don't want to forget the men and women in uniform, same with our fire department, our EM crew, everybody. they have a seat at the table when we're organizing these events.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and gentlemen, thank you for your experience and expertise. Appreciate it. Thank you all.